All right, who's excited? Chapter 10 is finally here. Strategic Management 2020, the final chapter. It's Global Strategic Management and the Future. Ooh, exciting. So, a little bit about Global Strategic Management. Usually, the countries are economically interconnected at an unprecedented level now. Early economic phases, countries or regions rely mostly on manufacturing industries, which tend to be dominated by a single company. The demand comes from foreign business travelers. Domestic demand is typically low for hospitality related products and services. So, one of the most common reasons for international expansion is that you're looking to get into a new market. Um, Try to acquire some better resources, increase your efficiency, maybe reduce your risk by spreading out your field so you're not just dominant or reliant in one market versus another, and to counter the competition. There are three dominant regions of the world: North America, Europe, and the Pacific. Um, for your strategies that you're going to have, you are going to be looking at two things here: your international expansion and your global integration. Okay. Now, with international expansion, you're going to be trying to consider doing an increase in your market size. You're going to be looking at your economies of scale. If you remember economies of scale, that's where you get so big that you can have better negotiation power and buying power. It'll give you also an increased opportunity for learning. You'll have a larger pool of resources and more opportunities to create unique partnerships. And for your managers, there's going to be additional opportunities for them as well. With integration, multinational organizations integrate their worldwide activities into a single world strategy through its network of affiliates and alliances. This can lead to core efficiencies, right? And it can also give you a little bit of flexibility globally and the ability to apply the firm's resources and skills across multiple markets. For your stakeholders and your resources, all global ventures rely on cooperation from a foreign government. Most foreign ventures involve many other stakeholder groups. You're going to have a decentralized approach that will allow local managers to manage their own information and modify strategic directions, goals, strategies, and implementation. A mistake is when you try to lump all countries in a region together. If you look at the Pacific, for example, there's so many countries right there in that region, as well as with Europe. There's different values and cultural norms that you really got to be looking out for. Um, your management on your internal stakeholders, such as your employee, becomes a little bit more difficult and complex because it's not a one size fits all. Your playbook now is going to have to include strategies for handling situations in different cultures and countries. And if you hire in immigrants from other countries to work into that country, you're going to need to be able to train them on different cultural sensitivities, which is why you must be sensitive to their different values, their norms, and really do your research to figure out how not to insult people. It's shocking the things that you do in everyday life that may end up being insulting to a whole different culture. One of the things to do for that is you're going to have training, but the corporate training programs may not work when applied in different settings. So when you're entering a new market, a new country, a new region, it's going to be very important that you do your homework and you find out what is going to work and what won't work while you're there. The government stakeholders are probably among the most difficult for you to manage. Some countries, to get your foot in there, you might have to agree to turn it over to, um, you know, somebody more locally to oversee things, right? And you may end up giving away a little bit of your advantage because the government can step in and just cease operations, and then they have the new playbook and to take over. Um, but it's a risk, and it's something that you try to account for, but it's not all bad. There are some advantages. It allows you to draw from a broader and more diverse pool of resources. So you're not just sitting there with the same puddle from the one country. You can sit there and learn and find out what works in other places as far as human resources, your physical resources, the technology know-how. Um, Somebody may have been doing something completely different for the same problems that you have, and it may work better. And it's an opportunity for you to learn um, how to adapt and keep moving forward. With your stakeholders and resources, Porter says that the four characteristics conducive to creating uh, a competitive global firm. Um, as Porter notes, there are four main characteristics in to creating a competitive global firm. You're going to need fair conditions, right? Your demand conditions need to be right. There needs to be related and supporting industries going on there. Your strategy, structure, and rivalry are all really going to play a factor here. Some firms buy foreign companies just to get their foothold in the global. There's going to be three different levels of sometimes it's subsidiary responsibility that will emerge. The first one is going to be your local firm to buy an existing firm. Really to go ahead and get established. To get the local buy-in yourself from just as much as it is to get the rest of the. You need to be able to locate your subsidiaries and nations with the strongest home bases. They're going to have some specialized contributions, and there's going to be a global mandate. Now, the roles they play depend on their capabilities and their resources that are available. And if we are honest, not all firms want to integrate the activities. Pursuing a global unrelated diversification strategy. There are a few ways to acquire things such as resources, specialized skills, and market knowledge. It is a tool for branding and growth, but you have to select high quality franchisee partners. Okay? Especially with the business format franchising. If you just go in and accept anybody, it's going to backfire on you. When you're globally expanding, it's a time to put yourself out there as a quality leader. You don't want to go in there and go with the global leader on crap product. Okay. Now, franchising, as we should know by now, being a 4,000 level class and a capstone class, it constitutes an alliance between at least two organizations, right? Each side benefits from the skill and resources held by the other. There's a lower return strategy compared with equity investment in hotels abroad. And the master franchise agreement and the rights to develop into larger specific territories tend to go into play here. With the global product market approach, you're going to have a multi-domestic strategy, so country to country basis. You're going to need to be able to tailor the services provided around the individual market needs. Your global strategy is standardized what they offer so that this is essentially the same in all markets. That tends to be pretty common in budget hotels and quick service restaurants. So when you go to a McDonald's in almost any country, it's going to look pretty similar. The menu items are going to fluctuate some because your resources are going to be different there as well, and also the local tastes are different. But for the most part, it's going to be a pretty standard strategy there. You are going to have a geographic strategy as well. Um, Maybe you will have a subsidiary brand for a specific region instead of using the main parent brand. Okay. The multi-domestic strategies, they will emphasize the satisfaction of segmented customer needs. So you're gonna do a little bit of customization to add more cost than can be recaptured. The global product market approach um, is used when there is a global market segment, right? The economic efficiencies that are associated, and there's no external constraints such as government regulations, and no absolute internal constraints either. You will also have a hybrid transnational product market strategy. Now, the counterpart to the best cost strategy here, and it can be accomplished through establishing an integrated network that's going to foster your shared visions and resources while allowing individual decisions to be made adapt really to what the local needs are. With your international expansion tactics, it's going to be several tactics that you're going to try to employ here. Obviously, we talked about franchising. There's going to be joint ventures. There's going to be management contracts. Now, a management contract is pretty much where you are agreeing to go in and run, like, say, a hotel while somebody else is the owner, right? The owner is going to be responsible for the profit and loss, but you're going to be taking care of the training, the running of it, and really how well you do. Your reputation globally can really help influence how sweet your contract is. Ownership, all right, or you can just acquire um, a company and take over the market that way as well. One of the most common things is that you're going to be exporting and using local wholesalers. Um, you're going to have some contractual arrangements such as licensing and franchising. You're going to go for that long term management contract if that's going to be your strategy. And you're going to have some direct investment foreign wise, whether it's joint venture or you're just going to wholly own the subsidiary or you're just going to go and buy out another company. Now, when you're sitting there trying to decide how or what you should do, you're going to be looking at your criteria. And uh, one of the top criteria things is always going to be cost. Obviously, if the cost of it doesn't outweigh the benefits, it's just probably going to be something that you're going to end up walking away from. What is your financial risk? Is there a huge profit potential? Right? We're not going to go into this if we can't make money. And what kind of control do you have? Right? How has the government in the country that you're looking to enter treated similar corporations or companies that have come in before you? Right? You're going to want to know this so you can see what you're expecting and make a decision based on that. And you're also going to end up measuring this all against real data rather than just generalizations, okay? So you're looking to improve your competitive position by using global strategy. By expanding into markets which, as we talked about, leads into your economies of scale. You're going to have that transfer of technological know how through joint ventures, and that can lead to a superior quality through that joint venture as well. You're going to do some licensing of your brands or technologies from abroad, which can force an open learning mindset. Um, if you are stuck into a singular uh, market or model, it can breed a certain just status quo mentality where you're not really looking to do anything but to maintain where you're at. Nothing exciting is happening. There's no real innovations being pushed forward. And there's that old guard, as we like to call them, that will just sit there and push back against it. Whereas when you start going global, you really cannot stick with just that singular focused mentality. You need to be a little bit more open to everything. And it's really important to recognize that when you cannot effectively manage globally, that you need to realize when you need to be able to hire a local manager to take over and ensure the success of your venture. Now, some of the greatest management challenges that you're going to get here is going to be things such as an unstable government. Uh, Looking at the changing tides of where the country's going, right? Hopefully, you get in at a certain point where you get to enjoy prosperity through years of stability, but every now and then you're going to end up going in someplace and the economy can turn and the government leadership changes completely. Look at America itself, right? Every 4 years, there's a chance for a whole new mentality from our government leader to completely change the way that business is done. You may deal with uh, inadequately trained workers. So if you're entering into a developed nation, the onus for training may be on you to get the local um, workforce up to your standards. And there's always that risk that you're going to train them and they're going to leave for somebody else because now they got all this training. But if you train them and you treat them well, the chances are they're going to stick around. You may have low levels of supporting technology. You may not have the same resources that you have back at your home office to take care of daily challenges. And that's where the ability to be open minded and flexible really comes into play. There could be shortages of supplies, a weak transportation systems, and it could have an unstable currency in whatever country you're in. Firms also tend to struggle with managing stakeholders that are typically very different in values, beliefs, or ethics from your home country. So, some of this comes into play when you're sitting there and you have to play by a certain set of rules, right? So, things such as bribes may be commonplace in one country, but they are very illegal for companies to do from ours. So, how do you get a workaround or how do you deal with that without insulting someone else, right? A lot of people, there's a thing called face, right? Where you need to save face and um, how you criticize somebody is so important, right? Some countries you can be brutally honest, and others you do it in almost like a showmanship type way where you let them save face, but at the same time, you get the point across. So, figuring out each way people need to be handled is difficult, but also important to take on. There's going to be some other characteristics that you should really evaluate when considering a foreign country. Most of it falls into the very broad environment of the country itself, but there's the social environment, the economy, the political and legal environment, how rampant is corruption, right? And just be brutally honest about this, and their technology capabilities. So in the 21st century, we're looking at increasing levels of global trade and global awareness. Um, we are cognizant and aware of global and domestic social turbulence, right? Um, if you're going into, say, like India, you have to be well aware of the caste system that's going on there. If you are not familiar with that, do yourself a favor and read up on it. And it's interesting because you can see similar things happen everywhere, but it's very um, old school and still in common day culture there. Another thing that you need to worry about is increased terrorism in a worldwide effort to eliminate it. If, for instance, you are a U.S. corporation, some people see you as a symbol of America, and you might become a target. I remember, I think it was Beirut, the bombing of the Marriott. It might have been Lebanon. Um, but those are things that you need to consider. Increased sensitivity to ethical issues and environmental concerns. Um, it's easy if you've taken my eco class, you will have known. But a lot of these companies that go in and build these giant resorts, and they don't really help fix things. They just do it as cheap as they can, and they may um, overwhelm the local infrastructure instead of like making sure that everything is coming out great, and they can end up looking much worse than before. The cruise industry is getting called out right now for their environmental track record. Um, so it's those type of things that you really got to be mindful of. Now, a bonus about modern day is that technology is just pedal to the metal. Things are changing so quickly, and it's fantastic for everyone. But keeping up with that, how accessible is it still in some of these countries, right? Especially with your communications. There is a continued erosion of buying power in the US and other economies that you got to worry about. And there's always going to be continual development of third world economies. There's an increase in US and global strategic alliances. Well, there used to be, but it changes, right? So, how have these relationships changed? How have they gotten better? How have they gotten worse, right? It's very important to sit there and watch that. Um, as we're watching now, um, the healthcare industry, there's pushes for more transparency and more access and more affordability. With this current crisis, it's really come to the forefront about how quickly things can go bad for so many. There's going to be a greater emphasis on security and crisis management. Right now is just a unique time to sit there and watch how each company reacts, and then they also are not just reacting to the current crisis, but they are making reactions in response to how other companies are responding, right? So This kind of gives lends some credence to the validity of how important things such as crisis management are to have in place before there is a crisis. You wait until after and you're just scrambling from day one, and it's just going to be an uphill battle for quite a while. There's some crucial actions for managers to take. You need to pay attention globally, right? What's going on? Try to keep an eye on things that are stirring locally, even from a global perspective. You need to be able to uncover the unexpected. You have to really invest in your guests, okay? You need to be flexible, right? You need to be able to move quickly and make important decisions in an expedited manner. You need to rethink your revenues to focus on your return on investment, okay? You need to make sure that you really take care to do a great job of managing your guest experience, right? And you need to be able to extend that guest experience to before and after their trip is done. Anyways, this has been your final lecture for strategic management. I am your host, Dr. Matt Mosley. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to drop us a message on YouTube or to email me directly. Thank you.